Welcome to the online worship service of Triumph Lutheran Brethren Church. Triumph is a multi-site church in the Midwest with campuses in Moorhead, Minnesota and West Fargo, North Dakota. Our vision is to see the life and message of Jesus transform hearts, homes, and cities. We're grateful that you've joined us online as the Lord works through our ministry both locally and around the world. Wherever you are at, our prayer is that God would meet you and that the life and message of Jesus would transform your life.
Our sermon text today comes from Matthew chapter 17. We'll be looking at the first 9 verses today. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Do not be afraid." When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. Then as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." So it's Sunday afternoon, and you're sitting in your living room with a friend that you just met a few years ago, and the TV is on, and the kids are playing, and kind of the mundane details of everyday life, they're just all around you as you and your friend are carrying on a conversation. When suddenly the air, it begins to vibrate. The ceiling above you vanishes, and this friend that you're sitting next to is now glowing. I mean, a blinding light glowing. And as it turns out, this friend that you're sitting next to is actually the radiant king of the universe. What would you do? What would you actually do? Would you sit there in absolute, utter awe? Would you be terrified to your core? All right, admittedly, it seems like a bit of an odd scenario, right? Like someone you're sitting next to in your living room is all of a sudden the radiating king of the universe. But maybe not that far off from what we see in our text in Matthew chapter 17. Right? I mean, Jesus is walking with his disciples. These disciples is his new friend named Jesus. They've known him for about 3 years. They're walking with him, and all of a sudden, he is glowing, and they stand there in a paralyzed fear. But it's on this mountain we're going to see a couple things. Because on this mountain, we see that the same God who is too glorious to be approached is the same God who is too compassionate to leave us at a distance. Right? It is on this mountain that we hear the voice that drops us to the dirt so that we can feel the hand that picks us back up. It's been 6 days. That's what our text tells us. It's been 6 days. It's been 6 days since Peter's proclamation that you are the Christ. And Jesus now turns to a mountaintop, a place where he would reveal something that was previously completely unknown to the disciples. And he chose a mountain. Often mountains were seen as the place where the heavens and the earth meet. It's the highest point. And so God used mountains on a regular basis in order to show himself to the people. Maybe one of the most popular or most well-known options of that would be at Sinai, which is what we covered. If you think back a few months, we spent 12 weeks at Sinai. We had a chance to talk about that. And you might remember that moment where the boundary was set up as we started the process and as God began to reveal himself at Sinai. Right? There's that stay away barrier. There's the threat of death if they cross that barrier and get too close to the mountain. There's a sensory overload of thunder and lightning and trumpets and smoke and fire. And it all resulted in an incredible terror coming to the people of God. I mean, even Moses, as he walks into all of that, as he ascends the mountain, stepping into that smoke, he can't even see the glory of God fully. He is shielded in a rock as the glory passes by. But today, here we stand on a new mountain, and on this new mountain, the disciples are about to meet the same God face to face. It was on this mountain that Jesus was changed, transfigured in front of their face. Now, transfigured isn't a word we use a lot. Other than this text, I don't know that I really ever use the word transfigured. What does it mean? How do we understand that word transfigured? Well, the Greek word behind it is the root word or the base word that we get our word of metamorphosis, to change. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to think less about the caterpillar into the butterfly moment, and I want you to think more about like an unveiling. It is more accurate to think of Jesus in this moment in his transfiguration and his own version of a metamorphosis as something that's been unveiled in front of us. So think about a powerful spotlight, bright, blinding spotlight that sits underneath a big, heavy tarp. And someone comes and takes a hold of that tarp and just rips it right off of that spotlight. That spotlight hasn't changed. There's nothing new about the spotlight. It's just that it is now fully revealed. It is fully unveiled. So everybody sees that blinding light that was once hidden behind the tarp. There's nothing new. It's just that you can now see it. This transfiguration for Jesus, as he's on this mountain with his disciples, it's like the tarp is being pulled off. And we see the real, true Jesus, this tarp of his humble human servanthood. It's pulled back. And you see what's inside. You see what's below it. And the disciples then see this light that's been there since the foundations of the world. And they see it before their eyes. And this radiating, this light that they see is the glory of God. Jesus not simply reflecting it, but showing and glowing and radiating that glory of God. One commentator put it this way, that Jesus was not merely reflecting or proclaiming a divine glory. Jesus was the revelation of divine glory. Jesus doesn't just mirror or imitate God's glory. Jesus is the glory of God. What a moment. What a moment as this unveiling occurs in front of the disciples. And to their credit, they recognize this moment. They know it's Moses. They know it's Elijah, the one who gave the law, one of the greatest prophets of the Old Testament. It's a culmination of the entire Old Testament carrying on a conversation with Jesus. It truly was a mountaintop moment. And we have an opportunity to hear from John. He talks about this in his gospel, and Peter writes about it in one of his letters. But what about James? What do you think James thought? Now, the James here is not the same one who wrote the New Testament book of James. It's a different James, so we don't get to hear from this James. But I wonder what his journal entry would have been like that night. Right? Like, I don't know if he's a journaler. I'm not a journaler, but maybe he was a journaler, and he sat down, he would have written out his journal. And I don't know what it would have been like, but maybe it would have read something like this. Where do I begin? The man I have walked with for 3 years simply unveiled. It was as if the sun itself had been trapped inside of his skin and it finally burst through. His face became a blinding light, more brilliant than the sea at noon, and his robes, they turned a white so pure that it made the mountain snow look gray. And when Moses and Elijah appeared, Peter just blurted out a plan to build shelters, booths of wood and stone, to tether this glory to the earth. Peter spoke from a desperate reflex, wanting to hold on to the majesty and never return to the plains of our mundane failures. And I felt it. I felt it too. If we could just build a home for this light, perhaps we would never have to face the darkness again. The disciples got it. They understood that there was something about this moment that was powerful. And they wanted to control it. They wanted to harness this glory so that they could enjoy it forever. They never wanted it to end. They really, really liked this version of Jesus. They were going to build shelters, create a space so that this could last forever, because Peter, in typical Peter fashion, which if we're honest is probably a lot like us, he just responds impulsively. This is good. This is really good. Let's stay here. Let's build a place to live so we can live in this forever. But they had no idea what was in front of them. They didn't fully grasp what was in front of them until the voice appeared. You see, as the cloud comes and covers them, that voice, it booms from heaven. This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. Now, we've heard this before. A couple weeks ago, as we were in Matthew chapter 3 at the baptism of Jesus. There the heavens opened and the voice came, and it said something very similar, almost the exact same words as the dove came on Jesus. And those present, they got a chance to hear it. But the disciples weren't there. This is the first time that they've experienced something like this. And so here, in this glory, in this moment, the weight of that glory is now too much for the disciples. I mean, they wanted to control this glorious Jesus. But as the fullness of Jesus is revealed, there was no controlling that moment. There's no managing this Jesus. Because when God's glory is revealed, it rightly silences our opinions and it exposes our unworthiness. And as the voice booms, the disciples respond in the only way that they can. Face down in the dirt. I mean, what else do you do? right? Like you've seen the unveiling of Jesus, the radiating glory of God coming from him. You've heard the booming voice of heaven declare the true identity of Jesus as the one and only Son of God. And it's this presence of God, the glory of the one and only Creator and King. It isn't a warm blanket that you can wrap yourself up in and feel so comfortable in this glory, but rather this is a crushing weight when it meets sin. And the disciples collapse under that weight. What a shift. What a shift. They move from wow to woe is me. Right? When that glory appears, when the voice arrives, this isn't a wow moment. This is a whoa moment. And as they sit there in the dirt, face down, the identity of Jesus declared from the voice, we see a side of Jesus that admittedly I've missed in all my years of reading this text. Because the true identity, we're asking the question, who is Jesus, as a part of our series, and his identity is declared by the Father. My Son, whom I love, I'm well pleased, listen to him. The identity declared by the voice, but demonstrated by the hand. I want you to notice this. Jesus, he doesn't stay in that cloud. I mean, the cover comes back on. That radiating glory is hidden once again. The mountain returns to its natural state, and Jesus stands there all alone. Jesus, revealed, approaches the disciples. Look at our text, verses 6, 7, and 8. When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said. Don't be afraid. And when they looked, they saw no one except Jesus. I want to move our attention from the voice to the hand. I mean, Jesus could have chosen to speak the words, to use the voice to bring calm. Don't be afraid. But instead, he chose a touch. He chose a touch. The Greek word when they touched is the word haptomai, and it means to touch, but more than just a graze or a light touch. It's got the idea of grasping, holding on to, or even fastening oneself to something or someone. So the hand of Jesus on the disciples, it wasn't a light brush or a light press against a shoulder. He touched them so that they would feel it, that they would know that he was there, grabbing a hold of the shoulders. And throughout Matthew's gospel, as well as the rest of the gospels, but in Matthew's gospel, we see the hand of Jesus at work, fastening himself to the lepers and to the blind and to the bleeding and to the grieving to bring healing. And here now, those hands used to grasp, to lay a hold of, to fasten oneself to the terrified. What a contrast of compassion. Right? Like the hands that moments before were radiating, they were glowing as if they were the sun itself, now touching the terrified. And the hand of Jesus bringing peace, bringing comfort, bringing healing. That's the hand of Jesus. Matthew tells us it's been 6 days. 6 days since the proclamation of Peter saying that Jesus was the Christ, he was the Messiah, he was the one that was being waited for. But it was also 6 days since Jesus told the disciples that he would be killed, that he would be handed over, and that he would be killed. You see, the hands from that mountain would be the hands on the cross. The hand that grasped the terrified shoulders of the disciples would be the hand that is fastened to the cross. What a contrast. We move from this glorious moment of transfiguration to a hand of compassion, to a man hung on a tree. The disfigurement of Jesus being the ultimate transfiguration of God's love for us. What a contrast. I want to move back to Moses for a moment if I can. I want to go back to Sinai. I want to go back to that time when he ascended up into the clouds and the smoke and the fire and the thunder and the lightning and all of that. See, in that moment, Moses asked to see the glory of God, and God grants that request, but only in part. God moves in front of Moses, showing him his glory. And the way God chose to demonstrate and to talk about that glory was again through a voice. This time the voice said this, Exodus chapter 34. The Lord is the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. The glory of God is the grace of God. That is his glory. The hand that radiated glory on the mountain is the same hand that radiates grace on the cross. To behold the glory of God is to behold the grace of God. The hand of God reaching out and touches the terrified because the hand of God was fastened to the cross. On that mountain, we see the true identity of Jesus revealed through a voice that booms and a hand that touches. So what do we do with this? How do we interact with this Jesus? Well, for some of us, that this whole story maybe is less than impressive. It's an interesting story. It's a good story. But you aren't necessarily impressed by the glory of Jesus. And if so, I'd like you to consider that maybe you've only encountered a tame Jesus. A Jesus of your own making. And your plan and the way you are moving through life is to manage this tame Jesus and fashion him into the creation you want him to be. So if that's you, I'm going to challenge you this week. Find an area of your life and invite the unmanageable King Jesus into your area, that area that you keep private, your business, your finances, your hobby. And it's a simple prayer. Lord Jesus, be king of this space. Show me your glory here. For others, we think about the incredible glory of God, and we think about meeting him face to face, and the only response we have is terror. Because we don't want to stand in front of that king. We're overwhelmed by the weight of our sin and God's holiness, and we don't look at the blinding light. We can't. If you're terrified, don't look at the light, look at the hand. This is the contrast of compassion of Jesus. I mean, those hands were pierced so you no longer have to hide in a rock like Moses. You can stand in the open and in the presence, receiving his peace. Because that hand that fastened itself to the cross is now saying to you, get up. Don't be afraid. So when the weight of your sin and your failures drops you to your knees this week, don't look at your own heart. Look at the hand. Perhaps even open your hands in front of you and look at your hands and say, the hand that was fastened to the cross is fastened to me right now. I am not afraid. Maybe still others of us hear this incredible story and remember again the identity of God declared and demonstrated. It's a wonderful reminder of all that Jesus has done for us. A reminder of the beautiful hands of Jesus. And if that's you, here's my reminder to you. There's one difference between the words from Matthew chapter 3 at the baptism of Jesus and the words of Matthew chapter 17 at the transfiguration of Jesus. And the difference is this. Listen to him. The rest of it's the same, but this time, God says, listen to him. So if this is a story that is a comfortable reminder and a wonderful reminder of all that God has done for you, then see Jesus only and listen to him. Listen to him as you walk through the valley of everyday life. When a difficult conversation comes, when a boring task has to be completed, or you have that stressful meeting, just remember the hand on your shoulder and repeat the faithful command. It says, listen to him. So, who is Jesus? He's the one who is glorious enough to save the world and compassionate enough to touch you. To behold his glory is to behold his grace. Amen.
Hey, I'm Pastor Doug, and I want to take a minute and say thank you for watching the worship service today. I have 3 quick thoughts that I wanted to share with you, and it'll only take a minute. First, we'd love to connect with you. If you'd be willing, you can visit our website at triumphlbc.org/connect and let us know how we can reach you. Or you can visit triumphlbc.org/events to find an activity that you could jump into. Second, we hope that you see this content as a supplement to your walk with Jesus. Our digital content really isn't designed to replace belonging and engaging with a gospel community. So whether that's here at Triumph or at another church, we invite you to find a community that you can connect with. And third, we invest a lot of resources into producing content that's used to bless people just like you all over our community. If this or any of the other resources we have here at Triumph have blessed you, would you consider giving? It's because of your generosity that we are able to continue creating and serving online.